Hey guys, this is David Jaffe. I'm the game director of God of War. This is our game commentary with myself and some of the other developers of the game. It's myself sitting here with Alex.
I'm Alex Stein. I worked on the movies for the game.
I'm Todd Papy. I worked on level design and enemy placement.
I'm Cory Barlog, and I was the lead animator.
So, one of the interesting thing about here is we really wanted to throw the player right in, both in terms from a story standpoint, kind of wondering what's happening to Kratos, opening the game with a bang, basically, as well as opening the game, right into the gameplay. Originally, actually, the idea was to start fighting the first Hydra, and I had actually gone out and rented a bunch of games that I had never played before, and just immediately just started trying to pretend what would happen if I was thrown into the action, and it was a little, it was a little too much. It was confusing. I didn't know the controls, and it was like, okay, starting the player on the Hydra is probably a bad idea. But I did like this idea of starting immediately throwing the player into the action. I was a little worried that the player would be overwhelmed, but I think people have kind of gotten it, and I think it really does kick the game off with a bang. Although there are people out there who think we probably should have started and you get used to the controls and the tutorial. I hate tutorials. I can't stand them. When I get a game with a tutorial that I have to play, I'm like, oh my god. There was a game, they're not letting us talk about specific games in this commentary, but there was a game where you're a spy, a stealthy spy, and it wasn't, anyway, you'll figure out what it was. But anyway, oh my god, you have to go through the whole freaking commentary before you even play the game, and I'm just like, not commentary, sorry, the whole, what's the word, tutorial. I hate
it. This game, this level does the same thing, it's just in terms of the actual gameplay and the story.
I know, I just think it's a bit more, it's embedded a bit more, so it just doesn't feel like you're training, which I just think is so freaking annoying. So.
Well, most of these players too, since this is a mature rated game, they've all played games before, so it's just the basic concepts and philosophies or they need to just learn our mechanics. But
well, you remember all the focus tests we did with this first Hydra. The freaking huge circle button is hanging over the Hydra's head, and nobody knew to press it. I mean, we finally had to slow the game down and put in all these training messages because people had no clue what to do. And we were just sitting there watching the focus test and going, oh my god, you're insane. But it's amazing what you think people are going to do, and then they don't. And it's really, it's your responsibility as a game developer to fix, but you just assume people have the same video game vocabulary that you do. And I guess
the original Hydra had like 6 button presses in it or something like that.
Did
the
it?
first
all
Hydra you encountered, all different, 6 different button presses. And we were like, this is really easy. And then we realized after people who hadn't played the game for like a year and a half thought, oh no, this isn't easy at all.
Yeah,
the combat system is really fluid and it's easy to pick up, and I think sometimes we probably thought it would be easy throughout, but there's specific moves and those mini games you're just talking about that you really do need to train them on.
but that's something else, how easy the game is or how hard it is. I mean, we're about, I don't know, we're about a month away from being on store shelves, and there's another game that's coming out, which I can't mention, but it's coming out a couple weeks before we are, and a lot of the reviews are coming out now, and they're saying it's a great game, but one of the things they're saying is that it's really, really, really hard. And there are some of these guys that we talk to on message boards that are like, oh, dude, it's awesome, it's an incredibly hard challenge and all that. And I think we struggled, I know I struggled trying to figure out sort of where that line is. I mean, you definitely want to make a game engaging and challenging and compelling, but at the same time, I don't know where I kind of end up on this argument about making games really hard and challenging. I mean, I think that's the audience that really enjoys that kind of game is getting smaller and smaller. And when you make this game that's, as big budget as this one, we really want to try to make it fun for a lot of people. So I think, I don't know, I've been doing games for about 10 years. This is probably the hardest game that I've ever had to work on.
Definitely.
Definitely.
I think we had so many goals for this game and this character that it was just, it had to really, every aspect of the game had to measure up to it if we wanted him to be really brutal and really violent.
Well, I think it's also that the last game the studio did, it got decent reviews, it didn't sell worth crap, and I think there was a real pressure to, no one came to us and said this is going to keep the doors open or the doors are going to close if this isn't a hit. I mean, there was never that kind of obvious pressure, but I definitely think I felt it, and I'm sure a lot of people on the team were like, this is sort of Santa Monica internal development's big shot, and if we screw this up, I don't know if we're going to be around much longer. So I think, looking at it now, I think we did pretty good. But my God, what a freaking pain!
Well, I think also after E3, I think we had a great showing at E3, and the pressure that we felt coming back from that.
Only multiplied.
Yeah, from the reviews and everything like that. You know, getting all the rest of the levels to the same point that our E3 demo was.
But we spent forever on that single level. I mean, the games I'd worked on in the past, you'd spend they'd build the level and then you'd spend a couple of weeks polishing it, and that was it. And this, I mean, we spent months and months, and I think it was just because we were trying to figure out what the game was. I mean, Shannon, who was the producer, kept coming up to me up until E3 and going, I got people on the team that are coming up to me and saying, we still don't know what this game is. And the only person who seems to know what this game is you and a couple of the designers. And I kept saying, oh, just trust me. In the back of my head, I'm like, I don't fucking know what this game is either.
Even that wasn't
I thought
true.
I knew what it was. What do you mean?
Even just you and a couple of designers, it really was only you in terms of knowing the gameplay and the story and how the level progression was supposed to work. I don't think even up until when we started doing the level tuning at the very end of the game, I don't think anybody on the team besides you had an overall idea of how everything fit together.
But why is that? I mean, is that my fault? Like, do I look at that as a failure as a game director, or do you think it just
as a failure as a person?
As a failure.
Yeah.
So, again, I finally, it's nice I get to fire people on commentary, so HR has no problem. So Cory, I can't even fire anybody. I wish I could. That'd be awesome. No, I don't. It's terrible. God, think about that. All people in this business right now. It's such a tough business.
I think one.
God, whenever. I want to talk about the people, Alex. I want to talk about the people that I cry for.
It's hard. This is the real part.
This is the real
Congo. I think that'd be great.
All right, we'll talk about that in the next segment because I guess we got to wrap this up because it's a chapter. So yeah. Anyway, so it sucks. It's a tough time in the business right now. Games are getting more and more expensive, and
There's a lot of consolidation.
there is, yes, and they're taking longer to make, and it's tough. It's really, really tough, and I don't know.
So did you notice that in that Poseidon movie, he tells Kratos there's one more task to do before he gets to Athens, but actually Kratos hasn't been given his mission to go to Athens yet from Athena?
Yeah, well, you know what?
I think it's time to rework this whole thing.
Yeah, that's it. That's
We
right.
can redo it. I think we have a couple of days still, so we
Now-
can redo that movie.
Which should be fun. We should call him up here in this commentary and just
Finish that idea.
Just tell him
we have this
what
great idea for this. We want to add an extra Hydra and just see what he does. It'd be awesome. In fact, let's do that. Let's get him on the speakerphone. Can we get Tim on the speakerphone really quick? Well, come on, we can hear him. Why not? If we put him on speakerphone, the mics will hear.
This is what Dave's had to deal with the entire project.
Can we just
can't get what he wants when he wants.
just call Tim. Call Tim.
Watch. He's gonna start crying soon.
Yeah,
Better
then
get
we
him
all
on
are
the
going to
phone.
have to stop.
What is the big deal?
Do that.
Get Tim on the speakerphone.
This is a perfect example of how the team was developed.
What do you mean? This is a great idea.
Just stomp your foot.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, go tell Shannon.
Well, that's fine. Okay, fine. Whatever. I'm only trying to entertain people, all right? Maybe they'd want to hear
Right.
the lead programmer have a conniption fit.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Mashing R2 to open a door would be good too.
You know what? Okay, listen, fucker. There's a reason. Let me
Creating
explain that.
animation to pull off the sun's head. That only took like 3 weeks.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that though. Seriously, there's reasons for that. The first one is the designers all sat in a room, and we were going, what can we do, design-wise, to make it so the only way you have to fight enemies isn't like, oh, you have to kill all the enemies to get out of the room. So lifting the doors and pounding R2 became one of the ways that basically if you haven't dealt with a lot of the enemies around you and you're trying to open the door, the enemies are going to be there to knock you out of that animation. So that was an intentional sort of trying to come up with a new way that wasn't so artificial to force players to just, you're stuck in a room until the invisible force field goes down. So there was a reason for that. I think it's pretty cool.
Kind of a risk versus reward. So
it is.
Yeah.
Though. I don't know. I think that's kind of cool, but I know.
Well, it's the same thing with the chess. Holding
Yeah,
those,
absolutely.
where it gives you that nice frantic feeling.
But I mean, that's something else too. Is if you read a lot of the message boards and you look at the focus groups, I mean, what gamers expect these days, it changes so much. Because for me, that's exciting and that's a challenge. And a lot of game players come in and they don't want any kind of challenge. They just want to kind of barrel through the whole game. And it may just be because there's so many games out there and there's so little time to play these days, but I don't know what it is, but it's like it's really hard now. You've got so many expectations of what a game should be.
I think part of it in a game like this, because I was playing through it, and each level is so interesting and the visuals are so exciting that I kind of wanted to get to the next one after a while. I didn't want to linger on one just because I couldn't beat a bunch of enemies.
No, I can see that.
Well, I think it's also people's time where they can watch a movie or they can play a game, and I don't think people have 7 hours to try to beat a level.
No, that's true. And, I mean, honestly, I think the perfect length, and people might hear this and think I'm an idiot, but I'd love to be able to make 3-hour games or 4-hour games.
Something you can just pick up
You pick
every
it up
5 minutes.
and you finish it. Like, I started playing a game, which, again, I can't say what it is, but it's about it's a stealth game, and he's in the jungle, and he eats animals and things. And
It's not that you can't say the name, it's that you can describe it precisely.
but I love this game. It's really, really good, right? But I'm stuck on this boss, and I'm like,
It has bosses?
it does have bosses. It's really, really good, actually, and it's just kind of like, it's sort of. I'm kind of running out of patience. I have a stack of games I want to play, and I got a lot of other things in my life I want to do, and I do want to watch that. You just mentioned that movie. You can't mention that. Don't have to bleep that out. But yes, he was just mocking my love. Let me just tell you something, folks at home. He was mocking my love of a certain 80s TV series that had this awesome car set in the South.
The car didn't talk.
The car didn't talk, and it had this great song it played when you honk the horn. and let me just say, when I turned 40 and hit my midlife crisis, I already told my wife, I'm getting me one of them cars, because those are awesome. But anyway, the point
Be driving at 2 miles an hour around Los Angeles.
I don't care, but listen, I got to get rid of the flag on the roof, though, because I don't like that. That's
Then
not
what's the point?
Because it's not cool. There should be an American flag on the roof. But anyway, the point is, though, seriously, that, yeah, I mean, especially when you're talking about an M-rated title, most people above 18, they have school, or they have jobs, or they have family, and I don't know. I'd love to make a 2 or 3 hour game.
I think especially on portable systems, that would be good.
Yeah.
When you only have it, you can only play it for maybe 10, 15 minutes at a time.
But then I'm sure I'll get flamed on all the message boards. It's like, Jaffe wants to make 2 hour games. He sucks.
Well, you'd have to
Well,
look.
then I think
If
that
they
would
only
be good
cost
for
like $10.
I'd love that. Would be great.
good
I
for
would-
handheld games.
I mean, people pay $15 for DVD. That's only $2.
I would totally be fine if it was like $10 or $15 and it was 2 or 3 hours, man. That would be awesome. That'd be awesome. So the nudity in the game, by the way, back to the commentary, the nudity and the sex, this was kind of a tough call because it was like, on one hand, I really liked the idea of painting Kratos as this sort of animalistic creature, and he was a badass on the battlefield, he was a badass in the bedroom, but it does also kind of come off as comical. So I think once the kind of comedy wears off, though, hopefully what resonates and what stays with the player is the aspect of his character that we're getting across here, which is he really is a guy who's very base and comes through from his sort of animal side and not this very sophisticated guy, and I really wanted to make sure we got that across at the very beginning.
But he still gets the chicks, too.
So, Athens.
How many iterations did this go through?
Oh my God, when Todd and I first started this was, I think, Todd's second.
Yeah.
Todd came from another company, which I can't mention. Todd comes from another company, then he sits down with me and we're like, let's design this, and I don't know if it's just because Todd was like, oh, Dave's the director, I'll just do what he says, or because he was as ignorant to the tools as I was. I imagine it's the first one because Todd's a pretty clever guy. But we were doing shit that was like, it was like 1,000 guys on screen and you could see a million miles, and we brought the lead programmer over and he just about had a heart attack. He's like, he's from England, I guess. You're crazy, we can't do that. So he was,
And that sounds very English.
He was from Transylvania.
And
But
then,
anyway,
then the lead level guy came over and he's like, oh, we can do this.
Who was
It was Ken.
the
With some
artist,
adjustments.
yeah, the main artist was like, yeah.
He always
that-
finds a way.
But that was always the fight, though. I mean, seriously, it was almost like if Dad says no, Mom will say yes. So Dad was the lead programmer, and the artists were always the moms.
Sorry,
so,
Ken, you're a woman.
You're a woman. So if Tim always said no, you just go to the artist and say, hey, Tim says the engine can't handle this. Can you make this work?
And he always said no, too.
No.
Which was
The
very
artist,
surprising.
the artist pushed it as much as the designers did, and the programmers did as well. But I just think one of their goals is always running at 60 frames, and while I think we all share that goal, I think artists and designers probably have a little bit less of a problem giving up that 60 frames a second to get other things, whereas I think for programmers that tends to be a bit more important. But
I think at this stage of the PS2, there's a lot of pressure to keep things running fast.
no,
Yeah.
that's true.
But also for the designers, though, it's all how it feels and versus a number.
There's something coming up later in the game, which I think is on the commentary, which will show you guys, where the frame rate just drops to, I don't know, it's like 20 frames a second, and the lead programmer was just like, you've got to change it. But every time we did focus test, we ask our testers here at Sony, they're like, dude, we love that, it's one of our favorite parts. And so end of the day, we're like, you know what, 20 frames, 60 frames, if you're having a good time, it doesn't really matter. It's only when it drops and the game sucks that you really have to be worried. So That's
real interesting.
oh Jesus, Alex. By the time this thing's over, I'm gonna, That's all right. That's right. Whatever.
How many changes did the mini game go through?
The Cyclops mini game.
Like 2 years worth of development.
These were actually originally going to be the second level.
No, do you know the first Ride the Cyclops was actually a
it was like a playable.
No, it was like a little balance mechanic. You'd get on a shoulder and you'd have to move the stick left and right. And
it was like a bucking bronco.
Yeah, and it just didn't work. I mean, I love it was so hard for me to let go of that and go with this kind of Parappa the Rappa style, which I can say because Sony publishes that game. But there's my secret.
Got it in there.
That's
you
right.
Found a way.
But seriously, it was really hard to let go of that because I thought it was just such a cool idea. I think one of the concept artists came up with that idea of riding on the Cyclops, and I really, really wanted that to be sort of more of a real interactive experience. But I think it worked out pretty well. I think
it was the original Hydra minigame too.
Was riding on his back.
Yeah, he rode on his back.
Riding the Cyclops is also one of the first pieces of concept art that Charlie did that really sold the game.
Riding the Cyclops,
yeah. That
where he's pulling on the eyeball.
Yeah, and slitting his throat.
Yeah, that was
everybody loved that image, and it really, I think, encapsulated the character.
Now this was like a last-minute puzzle. Those boxes, because we just needed something to do in that room.
That was a nightmare.
You had this big fight outside with the Cyclops, and then it was like, okay, you don't want to run right into another room with the Medusa. So that was a pain. It's so funny. The simplest little puzzles end up being a real pain. And the Medusa head rip used to be button presses. I think at E3 it was actually button presses. But can I say E3? Okay. But no, I can't. That's right. That's right. And this was the original thing when I first had the idea for this game. The whole game was based around you and the Medusa head. I mean, the whole game was built around. I want that moment where I'm running around freezing monsters. And I actually think, and I'm not just being modest or silly or stupid, but I think a better game designer could have probably made a whole game with just you and the Medusa head, and it's solving puzzles and killing enemies with a sword and Medusa head. But it's not the kind of game I would want to make. But I think there's so much more you can do with that mechanic that maybe if we're lucky enough to make a sequel, that can become a bigger aspect. Or maybe not. Maybe it was
That'd
the right
be fun
call.
in like a 2-hour game.
No, I know.
3
I know, but I could see it kind of being like. Oh, right. The ballistas. What a pain. But you know what? This was originally also. This was like a turret mechanic where you could sit there and rotate 360 and shoot arrows, and it was like the programmers put that in. And the minute I should have seen it, but the minute we got that in, it was like, oh god, we can't do this. Every game does this with.
Yeah. It actually it switched to a first-person camera too.
I know,
which was unique in this game.
Yeah, but every game does that. It's like, oh, let's just throw 1,000 enemies and shoot bullets at them, and so that kind of went away. Thank God. I mean, that was a lot of this game. I got a lot of crap from, we'd build something or we'd design something and then it would change, and it's like. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean,
it's a very fluid production.
It was a very fluid production. And in a lot of ways, it's like, I don't know, is that good? Is that bad? I mean, I talk to a lot of people who come from other companies, and they're like, oh, it sucks. In my last job, we knew exactly what the game was from the start, and it never changed. And I don't know how you can make a game like that. But, I mean, maybe that's why I'm me. Maybe there are tons of better game directors out there that could, they come in on day one and nothing ever changes. But I don't know, with focus test and...
I don't think anybody's like that, though.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of resistance, so maybe no one's like that, but you have to admit a lot of the team
I think because
got frustrated a lot, because it was like, this isn't working, let's fix it. And it's like, what do? Do you not fix it, or is there a balance? I don't know.
I think the part of the problem is that this is not, as you said earlier, this is not a modular game. Everything has to be built by hand, painstakingly, and so to just try something out takes a long time, and then to change it arbitrarily takes even longer. So
well, arbitrarily indicates that I just kind of woke up and I stopped drinking and thought I'd come in.
That's not how you arrived at the conclusion.
No, I mean, I watch people play and it's like they don't like this. It's boring.
All right, Cory, I guess I owe you $5.
That's right. That's right. Anyway, though, yes, it was very fluid, and I mean that was a pain for me too. I think this whole game. Let's put this. Somebody asked me the other day, did I like working on the game? I love the game. I'm very proud of the game. I'm very proud of my contributions. I'm proud of the team, but I did not like working on this game one bit. This was a miserable 3 years of my life. I don't know if...
Well, at the beginning, I think I had this similar feeling, but when it started wrapping up towards the end, I got the love back.
Well, I've always had the love for the game. I mean, it was worth...
Well, I meant for my job, too.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
I just enjoyed my job. I don't know if...
think the last
because
72
I
hours.
wasn't seeing you that much.
But it was hard, right? This was a hard fucking game.
It was very.
Yeah, I was only on the project for the last year and a half, and it was definitely a large amount of work. It's probably the hardest I've worked on any game, but it's also probably the best looking game that I've ever done. So
Let's address the annoying internet posters now for a moment who are going to say, I watched the Prima Strategy Guide DVD, and these guys were sitting around saying, oh, my job's so hard, and wah, wah, wah.
But if
Fuck you guys! Fuck you guys up your stupid ass. That's what. I mean, let me just tell you something, all right? Yes, there are tougher
the
jobs.
foulest mouth in the gaming
No,
industry. ladies and
Let me just say
gentlemen.
something. Hell yeah, there are tougher jobs. You know who has one? My dad has one. My dad worked his ass off in Alabama in the scrap business, okay? I know there are tougher jobs. But you know what? You're watching the commentary about how we made the game, okay? So, now where's the venom come from?
Well,
Where does Jaffe's venom come from? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Comes from
It's
the
just-
congo.
Generally,
This is
you're a
almost like
miserable
therapy.
person.
This is like therapy. Let's just,
well, I think people also think about games as it's just all fun, but I mean,
Yeah.
there was nights that Dave and I were here till 2 in the morning.
with Whitney, yeah.
Yeah, with Whitney, and I barely see my wife, and Dave would barely see his wife and kid. And
Dave apparently
I
has a
usually saw
daughter.
both of them
Yeah.
to make up for that, so it was cool.
That's right. No, but it's true. I mean, that's the hardest part is that this is such a, it's in some ways it's such a fun business and it's such a fun industry and you get to make such fun products. But my God, the work and the hours that go into it is just insane.
I think
Most people
one
don't
thing was
realize
like
that.
things were getting so bad even a year ago, and then we had the actual unveiling. We called it a premiere with the press next door, and
Is that what we like to call it?
Is that what we call
That's what
the
we call
gaming
a
industry a
premiere.
premiere?
And actually, that was the first time I'd actually seen the game sort of played through by somebody instead of just little segments. And it was the first time I really had an appreciation for it. And it definitely lifted my spirits at that time. They went back down as we started production again.
Maybe your spirits were lifted
Yeah.
because you found God.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's-
too.
that's-
God of War.
Nice.
Yeah, I remember marketing was saying when we first came up with this title, it's like, can we call it God of War? And they made a call because they called their sales
call it
guys
God.
in the South because it's like, is it okay if we put God in the title? And it's like, dude, it's not that God. It's Greek mythology. But I was glad we got to keep the title. This was originally called something else, but I can't say what it is. for
oh,
legal
jump
reasons.
backwards from here, you'll get a secret.
So yeah, here's the Oracle without. Somebody was telling me, why don't you just make it with the Oracle not wearing anything?
Yeah, it's almost
because she's like just got
completely
this
see-through.
like sheer. But you know what? Again, I mean, there was this this desire to make this like a adult action adventure game.
I spent a lot of time making that translucency perfect.
You did? No, I'm
And
grateful.
so it,
I'm very glad that there's nudity in the game and there's violence and there's. I love the idea that we can put games out there that aren't just watered down. I mean, some people are like, oh, it's just shock value. It's like, look, maybe that's true, but it's still stuff that I like. I like seeing. the
But movies
Oracle.
do it.
Value.
I
Yeah,
mean, movies
right.
do it now, and it's accepted.
And why? Yeah, why is shock value? It's not even shock, but why is, why is appealing to some base level bad? I mean, Kratos, that's his whole shtick. Is he's just this animal. So, I think it's kind of cool that the player gets to kind of piggyback on that. I think that's. I don't know.
It's in service of the story too. The nudity
Yeah.
works with the story. It's not gratuitous.
Again, why is gratuitous nudity bad?
I'm not. I was joking.
I don't understand that. But people are like, as long as it fits in the story, well, whatever. No, I can see that though. I don't know. I dig it. Whatever, man. I just go with my gut, I guess. I don't really think about it. So.
Well, I think Dave wanted to see Kratos a little bit more, so that's why we took off the armor. and-
That's
Yeah,
right.
just
That's
put him
right.
in a skirt.
Hey, No, I seriously, when Kratos had all the armor, he just felt like a generic soldier. And the more when the concept artist Charlie, when he finally kind of pretty much put the guy in a skirt and that was it, I'm like, dude, there he is. He looks more like an animal now. So I was very happy with that. So hey, let's talk about our vices on the game. Todd played poker a lot more. I put on 40 fucking pounds. What about you, Corey? Corey didn't.
Corey's got
hasn't-
black lung.
Corey, yeah, that's right. You
Yeah.
smoke.
I
I
smoke
smoke,
probably way more than I should.
What about you?
I actually quit before I started here.
Do you smoke when you're stressed?
Yeah, apparently that's the way it works now.
Well, not-
'Cause I had quit before I started here. I was all like, I'm done with that. And then I started here and people laughed at me and said, this is not the place you want to come if you quit smoking.
I weighed 155 pounds when this game started. and I weigh 200 fucking pounds. Insane.
That is.
Wow.
It is crazy, I know.
You're a tubby bastard.
What's that? I'm telling you, that's right. I got to lose the weight. Alex isn't sharing any of his.
No, I lost more hair on this project.
He went from
I lost weight on this project sometimes.
I don't get those people who whatever. Nobody's watching the commentary and wants to hear it.
It was the heroin use. Oh wait, can we talk about that?
That's right. But that's true.
Your
though.
own
Think about
personal
it.
usage, I think it's
Yeah,
okay.
it wasn't like it was endorsed by Sony.
Let me ask you this: why is it that is like? Think about this. If you smoke,
Uh-huh.
A, you don't gain any weight if you're stressed, so
Right.
that's good. You look good.
Yeah, you
and
look
B, people think you look cool when you're fucking smoking.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there with a goddamn, box of
Bag of
French
potato
fries
chips.
and potato chips. There's no girls walking by like, check him out. He's looking really cool with those French fries. Damn.
You have the fries rolled up in your sleeve.
I got the
your
wrong
white
fries.
T-shirt.